Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 89 based on novel. So let's start. Xiao Yan felt the strong sword spirit coming from his face. His face covered by the golden light was very dignified. Although he had not really touched the power of the giant sword, only these overflowing breath had made Xiao Yan feel a strong breath of death. This real breath is not only created by its terrorist power, but also condensed from the resentment accumulated after countless displays and battles. It is hard to imagine how many strong people have been killed under this huge sword. The more powerful the power on the giant sword was, the more dignified Xiao Yan's face was. In the face of the strong fighting emperor, even Xiao Yan, who has always been fearless, can't help feeling powerless from his heart. Half-emperor and fighting emperor are indeed two completely different levels. Even if the concepts are similar, the gap is like a gully in the sky. With the strength of Xiao Yan now, it is difficult to deal with even the 9-star and half-emperor, let alone the strong man in front of him. Is this the end of the way? Xiao Yan whispered reluctantly in his heart. The forest white fire surging on his body also dimmed down, and his body became soft. Xiao Yan's body like a hill fell uncontrollably like a boat under the wind pressure. If you lose confidence in yourself, all your strength is in vain. How can you stand up even if your bones are soft? Boy, are you so cowardly? When Xiao Yan fell powerlessly to the ground, Guyo's severe cry rose at the bottom of his heart. At this time, the only person who can face all this rationally is the Bonyu in Xiao Yan's body. However, different from the past, Jiyu's words did not make Xiao Yan look better, and his mood became extremely low. Jiyu Lao, you don't have to say more. I've really tried my best. Maybe this is my end, younger generation Xiao Yan. I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. The clenched palm slowly loosened. Xiao Yan seemed to give up the last trace of unwilling emotion in his heart and put down all resistance. In the face of absolute strength, he has been completely defeated and has no room to speak of. At the same time, Xiao Yan also clearly knows that this time, Guyo won't do it, and he won't ask Guyo to do it. Xiao Yan can't rely on Guyo's power to solve everything. Now, the only power in his hand can't support him to stand up. Perhaps, Xiao Yan's way forward is over. Waste. It's just a matter of your own death. Do you want to implicate your brother? Open your eyes and see. Luo Jin has fought his life to resist the attack of that array. Even if he has been seriously injured, he has never thought of giving up. He did all this for you, but look at you. Juran gave up so easily. Isn't all his efforts in vain? Jiyu's angry voice sounded again at the bottom of Xiao Yan's heart, which made Xiao Yan feel guilty and couldn't help stirring up a trace of fluctuation. Xiao Yan raised his eyes and looked at the battle circle of Luo Jin through the huge sword condensed by fighting spirit on all sides. Luo Jin in the battle circle is constantly dodging with Zhongyi, who is also pale. Although Zhongyi is also a strong man of the fighting emperor, he is unable to resist the 8-star fighting emperor after all. At the moment, the two can only barely dodge under the constant attack of the array. During this period, Luo Jin was hurt by the light column in the array because of his weak strength. At the moment, he not only has a weak breath, but also his dodging body is shaking. If he had not been guarded by Zhongyi, I'm afraid he would have been unable to support it. However, judging from the attack of the array, the Chen array outside the array is obviously reserved. After all, the person in front of him is the leader of Union Pavilion. Anyway, he is not a person who can easily kill him. He has no doubt that if he really killed Luo Jin, he may not need to be killed tomorrow. Today, his refining sect will be destroyed. Therefore, generally speaking, Chen Zhen at the moment just trapped the two people in the array. He didn't really want to kill them. However, at the moment, it was another important situation in Xiao Yan's eyes. Luo Jin is on the verge of life and death, which makes Xiao Yan's eyes rise again. Even so, it still can't really break out, but in the dark, Xiao Yan's loosened palm is bent again. All this is naturally in the eyes of Guyo. Let's say I hurt Luo Jin. If there is an afterlife, I will repay him with my life. Xiao Yan's bit away in his heart. Afterlife? What an afterlife? You ignore Luo Jin. Don't you even care about your ancestor? He did everything to make you who you are now. Why, is that how you repay him now? Jiyu shouted again. At the same time, after his voice fell, the mood in Xiao Yan's heart also fluctuated more. His low head slowly raised, and the anger in his eyes became more and more prosperous. The golden light on the diamond glass body shone, and the dark forest white fire gradually rose at this moment, burning like a towering ancient tree lit. It seems that the rising flame will spray out with a slight stimulation, and the world will be melted. The greater the emotional fluctuation in Xiao Yang's heart, the more happy the bone knew in his body. He said so much for this. The development of potential is mostly in the fierce battle, but it is just the development of external potential. Compared with this, a strong heart can make Xiao Yang strong from the inside out. At this moment, all the results that Guyo wants have been completed. Then, there is only one chance left. As long as the power in Xiao Yang's heart breaks out, Guyo believes that Xiao Yang's power will surpass every peak period in the past. Then, before the mood fluctuation in Xiao Yang's heart subsided, Jiyu spoke again and said, "Also, have you forgotten your family? Your wife and children, as well as your father and teacher, they are full of expectations waiting for the day you go back, but now you just started and chose to give up. You abandoned everything. Do you even want to abandon them? If your relatives break through and come here in the future, what should they do when they are also facing life and death? If you give up, it is equivalent to erasing their expectations. If you can't become strong, you will never be able to protect your relatives." "No." Jiyu's resolute cry just fell, but Xiao Yang, who was silent, suddenly raised his head, just like a giant god, suddenly raised his head in the surprised eyes, and gave a hoarse scream. The roar was like thunder. Although there was no injection of fighting spirit, it still had an invisible power to break the wind and cloud, and even resisted the rapidly falling giant sword for a moment. At this moment, countless people were shocked. Even the patriarchs of the four main sects couldn't help turning their eyes to Xiao Yang. The next moment, in the eyes of all the people, Xiao Yang's body was suddenly shocked. The strange fire spread rapidly from his feet and burned the huge sword on the four walls. At the same time, Xiao Yang's two huge golden palms were raised quickly, their palms touched each other, and their fingers were linked. Cumbersome printing formulas were played out quickly in Xiao Yang's hands, and the different fire in Xiao Yang's body also surged up. 3 mysterious changes in the sky fire. The first change. With the thunderous cry falling, a gorgeous fire rose rapidly in front of Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang took a big mouth and swallowed it into his stomach. At the same time, the yin formula in his hand never stopped. Then, the second fierce drink came out again in Xiao Yang's mouth. 3 mysterious changes in the sky fire. The second change. This time, Emperor Yang, who ranked first in the list of different fires, rose in front of Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang also swallowed one of them without hesitation. 3 mysterious changes in sky fire. The third change. Bang! Sen white strange fire rises in front of Xiao Yang with terrible high temperature, which is the bone spirit cold fire of Bone Yu. With the body in front, the bone spirit cold fire in front of Xiao Yang seems to be more powerful than the first two. At the same time, the power obtained by Xiao Yang after using it will naturally become extremely terrible. However, whether he can resist the giant sword or not is still 2 theories. At this moment, Xiao Yang, who was originally trapped by 4 giant swords, was no longer decadent. Instead, he was replaced by a violent gas-like warcraft. Unwilling to give up, his attachment to his relatives and friends, stimulated by the language again and again, Xiao Yang's inner emotion was finally completely exploded. On the same day, the 3 mysterious changes of fire were rapidly displayed in Xiao Yang's hands. At the same time, Xiao Yanzhuang's diamond body like a hill was also shaking rapidly. The mood of riots in his heart made him like a ignited explosive barrel at the moment. Every breath would stir up the situation in this world. At the moment when Xiao Yang swallowed the cold fire of the bone spirit into his mouth, a violent breath also surged from Xiao Yang's body. Xiao Yang's self-cultivation also soared rapidly from the 5-star and half emperor. In a twinkling, Xiao Yang's breath has broken through the category of 8-star and half emperor and stepped into 9 stars. Although it was only a temporary force, Xiao Yang could not help feeling a frenzy. Although his mood was a little trance, the color of frenzy on Xiao Yang's face was stronger. Finally, the breath in Xiao Yang's body can only stop at the 9-star and half emperor. The huge gap between the half emperor and the fighting emperor cannot be crossed only by secret methods. But almost crazy Xiao Yang was obviously not satisfied with this. After trying to squeeze the power of different fire again and again, Xiao Yang finally gave another hoarse roar like a warcraft, and the fighting emperor's blood in his body suddenly boiled at this moment. The power of blood and the 3 mysterious changes of heaven and fire, pushed by the power of the double secret method, Xiao Yang's breath finally improved again. However, compared with just now, although Xiao Yang has stimulated the power of blood at the moment, The barrier between the half-emperor and the fighting emperor has already crossed. After all, the gap between the two is too great. Even with the blessing of blood power, Xiao Yang's breath at the moment is only the later stage of the 9-star and half-emperor. Raw. Xiao Yang still seems not to give up. He has exhausted all means, but his strength still cannot reach the level he expected, which makes his heart more angry. At this time, on the top of Xiao Yang's head, the huge sword of Lingtian also fell down, and Xiao Yang had no time for any other action. Boy, don't pretend to play tricks here. It's just a secret method. Do you really think you can compete with the emperor? Seeing that the breath in Xiao Yang's body surged again, Jianming's face also changed slightly, but at least the strength gap between them was here. He didn't care too much about the change of Xiao Yang's strength again. As far as Jianming is concerned, no matter how Xiao Yang jumps and walks nowadays, he can't escape death. He doesn't believe it. With Xiao Yang's strength, how can Xiao Yang survive under his fighting skills that frighten the strong and powerful? Jianming hasn't thought about resistance at all. Hoo. The golden sword tip fell down fiercely, and the sharp sword qi cut away the senbai fire on Xiao Yang's body surface, revealing Xiao Yang's body of King Kong under the fire. Feel the sword qi on his head. When Xiao Yang looked up, he just felt that the whole head seemed to be cut by an invisible force, and a cold meaning gradually invaded his heart. Die. Jianming looked ferocious. Under his control, the breath of the golden giant sword was more terrible, and the golden light emitted from it was more and more dazzling. Drink. With a fierce drink like thunder, Xiao Yang's broad and strong palms suddenly waved, his arms shook, divided on both sides, and different fires surged out behind him. In the void around Xiao Yang, a dark white flame vortex condensed. The flame whirlpool just gathered. Xiao Yang immediately waved his arms together. His broad arms brought the sound of the breaking wind. Different fires rose on his arms. With the strong wind blowing, the flame flew. Xiao Yang's two arms were like a pair of huge flame wings. Walking against the wind in the strong wind, he felt arrogant in the world. At the same time that Xiao Yang's two broad palms slapped together, the different fire swept through. In the flame whirlpool around him, a thick flame light column suddenly rose into the sky at the moment, facing the giant sword falling on Xiao Yang's head. Gaga. I don't know how to live or die. I dare to accept the Emperor's sword seal. I'm looking for death. Jianming saw that Xiao Yang was defending himself with an attack and didn't mean to retreat at all. The corners of her mouth immediately couldn't help but evoke a sarcastic smile. I don't know how many strong fighters he has killed in this move. With Xiao Yang in front of him, he is only 1.5 emperors. Even with his various fighting skills, it is impossible to resist his move. However, Xiao Yang, who is in a state of rage at this time, naturally has no psychology. Whether he can resist or not, he will only do his best to face any battle. Although the momentum of the different fire light column is not weak, it can't help being cut off under the edge of the giant sword. When the strange fire disappeared and the energy on the flame light column was exhausted, the golden light covered on the Lingtian giant sword was still the same, but the fierce momentum was more domineering. Waves of invisible sword qi swept away, forming a more powerful energy wave in the space around the walls, bombarding Xiao Yang. Roar. The fury like the roar of an animal shook the sky. Xiao Yang raised his head. A pair of golden eyes were full of strange fire. With Xiao Yang's breath, there would be a fire wave sweeping from his mouth and nose. Under the golden light, Xiao Yang's face was ferocious, and there was a look of madness between his eyebrows. Suddenly, Xiao Yang's palms were lifted to his chest, and his fingers were linked. Every time his fingertips collided, there would be a circle of invisible power spreading, which made the space around Xiao Yang vibrate endlessly. At the same time, the violent energy condensed by different fire in Xiao Yang's body also gathered rapidly in Xiao Yang's palm. Hoo! With Xiao Yang's every breath, everyone in heaven and earth can feel that the void is shaking and the earth is shaking. Ancient Emperor Seal. When Xiao Yang uttered these 3 words word by word in a low tone, a deep breath like a hidden dragon went to sea spread from Xiao Yang's palm. At the same time, in Xiao Yang's wide and strong right palm, the dazzling golden light condenses a mysterious golden seal, covering Xiao Yang's whole right palm. The next moment, when the huge sword was about to fall on Xiao Yang's head, Xiao Yang's right palm suddenly burst out. The gold seal in his hand came out of his palm to meet the storm. Then, the gold seal was bombarded with the giant sword with a mighty momentum. Boom! At the moment when the golden seal collided with the giant sword, a terrible fighting wave surged from the place where the two collided and echoed in this narrow space. The huge sword vibrated and the terrible pressure came down like Mount Tai. The huge golden seal also couldn't help sinking slightly. Xiao Yang's face below suddenly became ugly. Roar. Xiao Yang was shocked with all his strength and scattered the fighting waves around him. At the same time, the fighting spirit surged in the palm of his hand and blocked the huge sword with a grim face. However, Xiao Yang's actions are not destined to be a long-term plan. In the face of the sword move of the strong emperor, even if he tries his best, he can't be an opponent. At the moment, he can block this sword only because Jianming hasn't really used the power of the sword seal. At the moment, the sinking power of this sword and the sword qi it contains have made Xiao Yang so difficult. It is hard to imagine whether Xiao Yang can resist if the power on this huge sword really breaks out. Click. But for a moment, a crack suddenly appeared on the huge gold seal, and the sword tip emitting dazzling golden light was stabbing into it. The terrible force poured down, and Xiao Yang's body suspended in the air immediately sank a lot, together with the huge gold seal, also trembled violently at the moment. Xiao Yang, with your strength, even if you are given more secrets, it is just a bluff. There is no sound but no form. In the final analysis, you are still a waste. At the first sight, Xiao Yang was able to block his sword. Jianming's face was also surprised. But when the crack appeared on the gold seal, Jianming's face was replaced with disdainful sarcasm. Well, that's enough. Next, let's show you the real power of the Emperor's sword seal. As a cold drink came out, Jianming waved his 2 fingers and paused for a while. The momentum on the huge sword suddenly broke out, and the terrible force was suppressed in an instant. Xiao Yang's body just stabilized fell uncontrollably again, and the huge sword was cut down immediately. Bang! With a violent bang, in front of Xiao Yang, the huge Jinyindan time was cut to pieces by the huge sword. At the same time, Xiao Yang at the bottom couldn't help spewing out a big mouthful of blood immediately, and the whole person's breath became weak in an instant. Die! Xiao Yang's body fell uncontrollably, and the huge sword also followed closely. The sword tip was facing Xiao Yang's chest. The sword wind was fierce and the sword qi was fierce. Bang! Xiao Yang's body fell heavily on the ground below. His body like a hill hit a pit several feet deep, sprayed with blood, and his huge sword also fell at this moment. Xiao Yang, little friend. In the array, Luo Jin and Zhongyi shouted with surprise. Luo Jin's hands stained with his own blood shook violently and looked ferocious. After all, he didn't expect that these people in front of him were really brave to such an extent. The next moment, when Luo Jin watched the huge sword point stab into Xiao Yang's chest, the only idea in his heart was, "Today, we must wash 4 cases with blood." The sharp huge sword tip paused on Xiao Yang's King Kong body for a moment. Then, under the attention of the public, it hissed and stabbed Xiao Yang's chest mercilessly with the sputtering of blood. In this severe pain, Xiao Yang's body couldn't help twitching violently, and the sound of bone fracture came out crackling at the moment. Xiao Yang. Watching the huge sword stab into Xiao Yang's body, Luo Jin seemed to be suffering the same pain as Xiao Yang. The whole person's mood suddenly became excited, trembled, his veins burst, his face looked red, and his dark eyes were filled with endless rage at the moment. At the same time, the little fighting spirit left in Luo Jin also poured out of his body madly, trying to break through the big array surrounding him and Zhongyi. It's just a pity that although he fought hard to impact the array, everything he did in his current state is still futile after all. Gaga. Jianming looked at Xiao Yang, who was about to die under him, and couldn't help but show a sneer on his old face. He gave a quack smile, and then grinned and sneered. A mole ant dares to challenge the power of fighting the emperor. It's not bad for you to die under the emperor's sword. It seems wrong. Your sword has stopped again, and Xiao Yang is not dead. However, when the sneer in Jianming's mouth fell, Yi Luotian, who had been silently observing all this, was suddenly surprised. What? Yi Luotian's words shifted the eyes of the other 3 people, and the eyes looked at Xiao Yang in surprise. At the same time, Luo Jin and Zhongyi, who were trapped in the array at the moment, also looked a little stunned and immediately raised their eyes. At the next moment, everyone's breath could not help but stagnate slightly. The people outside couldn't help growing up, and their faces showed a look of horror. Under the eyes of everyone, the huge sword tip has penetrated Xiao Yang's chest and pierced his back. However, because Xiao Yang has the relationship of different fire protection, Xiao Yang still has a trace of breath at the moment. But it was this residual breath that supported Xiao Yang to wake up again. When the different fire rose, the forest white flame wrapped Xiao Yang's whole body, including the sword blades that pierced Xiao Yang's body. The raging strange fire continued to rise, several times stronger than before. Under the burning of the strange fire, the powerful giant sword could not help but make a hissing sound. With the rise of an energy fog, the breath on the giant sword weakened. Different fire protector. This thing is so domineering that it burns itself, but it is more powerful than his master. Even my giant sword can't help being burned. Seeing that Jiu Ling's cold fire incinerated a lot of the energy on his giant sword, Jianming could not help frowning, but at the same time, she also had a trace of covet for Xiao Yang's different fire in her heart. Baby, who doesn't want to have power, who doesn't want to have power? Even if he is a strong fighter in awe of everyone, he can't help but be tempted in front of different fire. But then, Jianming looked back calmly, because he had noticed that when his state of mind changed, the people around him all focused on him. Xiao Yang, even if you have a strange fire to protect your body, it's just for a while. Look at the emperor breaking your strange fire. Glancing at Wu Jitian without trace, Jianming looked at Xiao Yang again and shouted loudly. At the same time, the huge sword inserted into Xiao Yang burst into dazzling golden light. The huge sword suddenly sank and wanted to kill Xiao Yang here. Roar. However, at the moment when the giant sword sank, Xiao Yang, who closed his eyes, woke up again. His arms bent and his broad palm hugged the giant sword for a while. At the same time, he took a big mouth and drank like a dragon roaring. At that moment, the dragon phoenix blood in Xiao Yang's body was finally stimulated at this moment. Shua shua. In Xiao Yang's body, the purple and golden dragon phoenix's blood rushed all over Xiao Yang's body. When the dragon phoenix's blood touched the blade inserted into Xiao Yang's body, it made a clear sound like a collision of gold and iron. Click. Suddenly, when the blood of the dragon phoenix condensed into several blood dragons and collided around the giant sword, a corner of the sword edge of the giant sword was forcibly smashed by the purple and golden blood of the dragon phoenix. The little blood dragon proudly raised his head and silently uttered bursts of dragon chants. It has to be said that the power of the Taishu ancient dragon family is really terrible. Not only the physical body is strong, but also the power of this blood has a great power better than the human blood. With the appearance of this small gap, Xiao Yang's hands turned into dragon claws suddenly clenched, and the blood of the dragon phoenix gathered in his palms with terrible momentum. With different fire, when Xiao Yang's roaring fist hit the huge sword in front of his chest, small cracks spread rapidly. When Xiao Yang's second fist fell, the whole sword tip of the huge sword, it was smashed by force. After all this, Xiao Yang, who had been seriously injured, was fiercely bombarded by the dragon's claws on the ground. With his strength, he stood up, raised his left arm, and pulled the remaining sword body that continued to fall closer. The purple and golden dragon phoenix blood hovered in his scarlet eyes. However, Xiao Yang's strength at the moment was also passing rapidly. A sword pierced his chest. He could not be hurt anymore. He could still explode such a powerful bombardment under such circumstances. This was his greatest limit. This kind of explosive power was on the whole continent, but it's hard to find one. However, at the moment, even against the continuous loss of blood in his body and the danger of death, Xiao Yang still strongly propped up his body. With the crazy idea in his heart, he grabbed the dragon claw that was slowly fading away, and hit the broken sword in front of him with a fist. Bang! 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 Every heavy blow, the giant sword will break in response to the sound, and at the same time, a fierce energy will burst out and bombard Xiao Yang's seriously injured body, making him more injured. In this way, Xiao Yang roared with fierce force inch by inch. The power inspired by the blood of Long Huang had been exhausted, and the dragon claws had faded. Even Xiao Yang's Vajra glass body was getting darker and darker. Only the forest white fire attached to Xiao Yang still spread a terrible high temperature and protected Xiao Yang. And this is precisely because, at the moment, the person who controls the bone spirit cold fire is not Xiao Yang, but the bone yu in his body. Bang! When Xiao Yang's last punch smashed the huge hilt in his hand, Xiao Yang's body lay back powerlessly and fell down. Bang! There was another bang, the golden light dispersed, and the Vajra glass body supported by Xiao Yang suddenly dispersed at this moment. Xiao Yang's body fell hard from the air and finally fell into the bottom of the huge pit below. If it wasn't for the protection of bone spirit cold fire, I'm afraid it would be enough to kill Xiao Yang with this fall and the injury on Xiao Yang's body before. Tut tut tut. This guy, he smashed the sword. Is he really just a half-emperor? That's the Dudi strongman. How did this guy do it? He could smash the weapons condensed by the Dudi strongman. Tut tut, the most important thing is not to forget that Jianming and Jendi, the leader of one of the 4 major sects in the western regions, have reached the super strength of the 8-star Dudi. Even if you look at the whole western region, There are only a few people who can compete with them. Yes, Xiao Yan can smash the weapons gathered by the Sword Emperor. No matter whether the Sword Emperor has used all his strength or not, after today, I'm afraid the name of Xiao Yang will spread all over the western regions. Alas! It's a pity that even though Xiao Yang is strong, the patriarch of the 4 major sects came out in person today. Even if he has 10 lives, it's not enough for others to kill. Becoming famous is just vain. It's a pity, a pity. In the crowd outside, all kinds of comments and laments kept coming out. Lungsue City, which had been silent because of the war in the field, became noisy again because of Xiao Yang's fall at the moment. However, compared with the whispers of the crowd outside, the sword tea in the field is gloomy. He never expected that Xiao Yang would be so fierce that he would break his 6th-style sword with his life. But just because of this, Xiao Yang's actions will cause the common killing intention of the 4 patriarchs. Xiao Yang has created a miracle that is completely impossible in their eyes again and again. They have no intention to investigate the reason. At the moment, the 4 strong fighting emperors have only one idea in their hearts, that is, get rid of Xiao Yang and never suffer from future trouble. Jianming, this is the end of the matter. Do you still want to keep your hand? It's a long dream. You'd better do it right away and kill Xiao Yang, which will never happen again. The palm under Chen Array's sleeve robe was suddenly clenched, and the 9 Sky Thunder prison array behind him suddenly burst out thousands of dense lights. Thick blood-colored thunder burst into the sky, and the whole array gradually changed into a strange color of blood red. This is the true face of the 9-day thunder prison array. Chen Zhen, you are so brave. We are the cloud-hidden pavilion. Once our pavilion leader has an accident, none of your 4 main gates will stay. When Zhongyi saw this scene, his heart suddenly sank. He knew that Chen Zhen was really going to kill. Once that happened, he and Luo Jin would be really dangerous. However, for him, his death is nothing, but the most important thing is Luo Jin. As an elder of Union Pavilion, Zhongyi's greatest mission is to protect Luo Jin's integrity. In order to complete this mission, he can even take his own life as the price. However, Zhongyi is unwilling to use this method before he has to. Elder Zhongyi, don't be silly. Didn't the pavilion leader also say that as long as Xiao Yang dies, he will kill our 4 sects? Since they are all dead, why don't you take a cushion? What's more, you'll make a lot of money by exchanging his life for our 4 fighting emperors. Hearing the speech, Chen Zhen sneered. His old face was full of a cold look. His deep old eyes were cold, and his killing intention was not concealed at all. Chen Zhen, do you really dare to kill me? Compared with Zhongyi, Luo Jin is much calmer at the moment. Luo Jin looked up at Chen Array and asked in a deep voice. Chen Zhen's eyes narrowed and his index finger flicked. A golden beam hit Luo Jin's eyebrows in an instant. The latter's body stiffened and immediately softened. Your Excellency. Seeing this scene, Zhongyi on one side was shocked. Chu came forward and quickly helped Luo Jin. Only after he found that the latter just fainted, did he breathe a sigh of relief. After taking an imperial pill for Luo Jin, he looked at Chen Array, but the latter had turned his eyes away. Hey, Chen Zhen, it seems that the boy guessed well. You really don't dare to kill him. Wu Zetian has been watching the situation in the field. Seeing this, he can't help laughing at Chen Array. I give you 10 courage. How dare you kill him? In this regard, Chen Zhen said coldly. For his old life, he did not dare to kill Luo Jin so easily. After all, the latter's identity is really too special. Before he has a practical grasp, even if Luo Jin is about to die, he can't kill him, but he can save him. Only by holding Luo Jin in his hand, even if the people behind the Cloud Pavilion really come to the door, they may still have a little room for resistance, otherwise, he will really have nothing at that time. At this moment, Luo Jin in front of them has become their amulet. As long as they use him to threaten those people in Union Pavilion, they must not dare to do anything to them. At that time, it's not too late to force them to make a thunder punishment oath and return Luo Jin to them. Hey, I've been looking here just now. The action you knocked him unconscious almost surprised me. If I hadn't found it in time, I'm afraid the boy would have absolute confidence in his heart. Seeing Chen Zhen admit, Wu Zetian smiled. Under his seemingly rough smile, there was wisdom that was completely inconsistent with it. In this way, you can kill Xiao Yang and capture Tianjue Steppe, and you can avoid the pursuit of Union Pavilion. It's killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Why not? On the other side, Yi Luotian looked at the scene with a smile on his face, stroked his beard with one hand, and a pair of bright eyes rolled around in the eyes. In the deep pupils, There was a little very obscure dark orn passing by. Moreover, Jianming. Since Jianming heard Chen Zhen's words, she couldn't help thinking of what was crushed by the mysterious strong man. It was the pain of his whole life. Even if he spent his whole life, he couldn't erase it. And it is precisely because of this that he also dare not kill Xiao Yang before he has no definite assurance. However, at the moment, seeing that Luo Jin has been subdued by Chen Array, he naturally knows quite well about the intention of the latter, as one of the 4 sects. If he has an answer in his heart, he will not have any scruples about starting. Gaga, Xiao Yang, I have to say that you are the first person the Emperor has seen since his cultivation. However, the more your ability goes against the sky, the more the Emperor wants to kill you. This is your destiny and heaven's will. So, you just die. Jianming looked at Xiao Yang lying in the huge pit with disdain. Her heart moved. Hundreds of sharp swords suddenly condensed out of the void, and the sword chi was agitated. With Jianming's order, hundreds of long swords immediately shot at Xiao Yang in the huge pit below. This time, Jianming wants Xiao Yang to die. He can't die again. Today, even if the heavenly king Lao Tzu comes, Xiao Yang must die in front of him. Whoosh dash. Hundreds of sharp swords made a sharp wind-breaking sound and turned into streamers in the void, like raindrops all over the sky. In an instant, they had come within the 10 feet of Xiao Yang. The invisible sword chi had left crisscross sword marks on the earth around Xiao Yang. The next moment, the long sword had come to Xiao Yang's forehead. In a moment, Xiao Yang would die completely, but at this moment, a plain, but earth-shaking, domineering old voice suddenly sounded between heaven and earth. Get out. This video will end here.